Good morning, my dear comparativist.
Good morning, Prof.
Great. I believe we are all doing well, ladies and gentlemen. Are you
Yes,
fine?
yes,
Yes,
please.
sir.
Very well, very well. And good to have you. Today, we are going to discuss a very crucial topic, authoritarianism. Authoritarianism. And it is very broad in nature. This topic is very broad, unlike what we discussed last week. This one will cover us today and next week. So you will bear with me, ladies and gentlemen. You have heard of this before. In our previous sessions, we made reference to authoritarianism. I want someone to share idea or perspective. What is authoritarianism? What comes to mind? Yes, my dear friends, we've come across it in our previous session.
Hello, sir.
Yes, Gifty.
Is when a single person rules.
When a single person rules, okay, fantastic idea. When a single person rules, okay, any other? All right, but look at the image I've projected and then describe. You can use that to also describe authoritarianism. I want to see if someone use that to describe. Yes. Okay, Obed.
So, with regards to the picture, we have two pictures here. One is military rule by
Okay.
an individual, and the other it's a democratic way where an individual also stay in power for a very long time.
Okay, well, yeah, nice thoughts. Nice thoughts. But you mentioned one is democratic rule, where one stays. Uh, no, but these ones, they don't depict democratic rule. Okay. They are all authoritarian rule or regimes. Okay, they are all authoritarian regimes. Okay, Foster has texted in the comment box. Is this a political system in which power is held by one leader or a small group? Political freedoms are limited. Citizens have little influence over government decisions. Good, Foster. That is very comprehensive. Okay. Yes, comes closer to what Foster has mentioned, but it also has some kind of resemblance to what our dear colleagues have also what mentioned. Okay, they all embody some key elements of authoritarian regimes, authoritarian rule. So, ladies and gentlemen, and I deliberately took this image from the 2026 Freedom in the World report. Okay, you saw the cover page and you remember the banner title for the year in review, the 2026. The title of the Freedom in the World report. What was the title? Yes, the Freedom House report 2026. What's the title?
The growing shadow of autocracy.
The Growing Shadow of Autocracy. Good, fantastic. And you see the one to your left is the 2023 report, and that one to you see the image they use for the cover page, military regime. Now these images are trying to depict that the world, and for that matter many countries of the world, are living in some form of authoritarian regimes. Some form of authoritarian regimes. And that makes authoritarianism a very crucial topic in comparative politics. Very crucial in comparative politics. And from the way Gifty and my good friend also, conceptualize authoritarian regimes. Okay, fantastic. That will lead us to unpack the various forms of authoritarian regimes. Okay, the various forms of authoritarian regimes. Suggests that they come in different forms. You might even think that it is a democratic leader who has been in power for a long time. But it is just because of the varieties. That is why you might be tempted to even say that. But by the time we are through with this topic, my dear friends, you will come to understand the various forms that authoritarian regimes come about. Before we go to the core points, I want to whip your appetite. Okay, I have a lot of teasers before I introduce you. So I am now warming you up gradually into the topic. Okay, so all these are commentaries. We've not come to the start of the session, my dear friends. All right, these are just introductory remarks. Now, you also remember that in the Freedom House report, this is a topic we learned last 2 weeks. Okay, the Freedom in the World report, the 2026 report. How does the Freedom House report classify states? Tell me, how do they classify states, ladies and gentlemen? The Freedom House. Yes, Michelle.
They classify states into three:
Yes.
free, not free, and partly free.
Fantastic. So if you look at the map to your left, okay, all the areas denoted in green, these are classified as free states, meaning they have what? Freedoms, liberties, and these are pure democracies. So for now, focus only on the map to your left, my dear friends. Are you with me? Hello? Can you see the one to your left where my cursor is moving? Can you see that one? Hello?
Yes, please.
You can see. So focus on that one only so that you are not confused. I have two maps. One is to your right. The right one is just for interpretation. That one, the colors don't matter. The one to your right is just the world map. The colors do not matter. Are you with me? The colors do not mean anything. I just brought that world map for you to know the names. So it is just for illustrative purposes, for you to know the names such that you can identify the countries or the territories as they appear to your left, okay, or in the Freedom House map. For example, when you look at this bigger territory here. Can you see my cursor move? Hello?
Yes, please.
Which country is that? If you want to readily know which country is that, trace it on the world map. So let's go straight to the world map. Now see the position. Which country is that? Which country is that?
Russia.
Okay. Now let's come to this small green one here. Which country is that? For you to know the country, trace it to the world map. Which country is that? Which country is that?
Mongolia.
Mongolia. Now look at the country beneath Mongolia. Which
China.
country is that? Trace it. Which
China.
Very good. Now let's come here. Look at this green. This green. Which country is that? Let's trace it on the world map.
Canada.
Very good. Now let's look beneath Canada. Which country is that? Let's go back. Which country is that?
USA.
USA. So my dear friends, now The map to your left, freedom in the world map, that is what indicates which ones are democracies and which ones are authoritarian regimes. So all those in green, these are democracies, and those in yellow and purple, partly, free and not free, these are what authoritarian regimes. For you to really know the countries, okay, the names, trace it, okay, to the map on your right, then you can know. All right. So, and when you check, you can see that the Freedom in the World 2026 report, you can see many countries denoted as purple and then yellow. And all these are authoritarian regimes. So it gives you idea, authoritarian regimes in perspective. And as students of comparative politics, you can easily identify them by their names. Now look at this country here. What is the name of the country? Which country is that?
Australia.
Australia. And is it a democracy or authoritarian regime? Yes.
Authoritarian regime.
It's what?
Authoritarian regime.
No, you are confused. Which country is that? Which regime? Which regime is that?
A democracy.
Why is it a democracy?
Democratic regime.
Why is it? Why? Why is it a democracy?
Because it's green.
Because it's green. The answer is simple. So when you see in the exam, these are some of the things I'm going to bring. We've mentioned that all those that are green, okay, they are free, and these are democracies. So if I point you to any country and you see it is green, okay, you shouldn't even worry. Look, which country is this? Okay. Which country is this?
Mongolia.
What kind of regime is that?
Democratic.
Democracy.
Democracy.
Democratic regime.
It's simple, okay? Very simple as that.
Yes, sir.
All right. But this is just by the way to give you a quick pictorial view, okay, of democracies in the world and then non-democracies or authoritarian regimes in the world. This gives you, a quick visual impression. Those to your left, denoted by the colors, the green are democracies, the yellow and the purple are non-democracies. These are authoritarian regimes. And for you to know the names of the countries, I have brought the world map to your right. And I've told you that those ones, the colors do not matter. Okay, forget about the colors. They are just there because of the names. The colors do not mean anything for those to your right. Are you with me? All right. Now, my dear friends, which map is here? Which map is displaying?
African map.
This is the African map. And this is an African map, which is indicating or demonstrating many recent coup d'etats on the continent. So the period after 2020, post-2020, and these are very recent happenings. The period after 2020, some countries, so there's an emerging trend. Countries in Africa are experiencing military takeovers. A military regime, so military takeover is one aspect of authoritarian regime. Okay, with the most recent one happening in Guinea-Bissau and then Madagascar. Okay, Guinea-Bissau and then Madagascar. These are quite recent coup d'etats on the continent. Are you with me? So if you are asked, scholars of comparative politics identify, maybe 3 countries in Africa who have recently encountered coup d'etat. This is something you should not struggle. All right. But this tells you that there is growing authoritarianism in the African continent. By the way, when you check now, look at Africa in the context of the globe. Can you see the cursor? So you can see Africa. Now, when you are giving a quick analysis of Africa, what can you say about it? Is it essentially democracy or non-democracy? Look at the African map here. Is it essentially democracy or non-democracy? If you like authoritarian, it is what?
Democracy.
Non-democracy.
Non-democracy. Why?
Because
the democratic regime.
Because what?
Please, because majority of
Because the democratic region is too small.
Democratic region is too small. Why?
Okay.
How do you know? How are you able to tell that the democratic region is too small?
because of the colors.
Because it's the green portion down there. And it's
I
too
want
small.
to mention it. Mention it, right? So you see, you have just few greens. And which colors are dominating?
The purple color.
Purple. And the purple denotes what? Authoritarianism, not free. Okay. Now, despite this, poor situation, already the situation is very poor. So, few are partly free, which means they are struggling. These are hybrid regimes, which means, well, they need to grow and then enhance their democratic standards. Yet, instead of, or rather than enhancing or increasing, they are rather retrogressing, with most of them retreating. Okay, and that is regression. All these indicate regression in their democratic growth. What can you say about this image, my dear friends? I saw a chat. I saw a comment in the chat box. But what can we say about this image here? Yes, quick one. And all these are found in the recent Freedom in the House report, Freedom in the World 2026. Sheriff. Yes. Yes, Sheriff. Sheriff, on mute. We can't hear you, please.
Military leaders.
Military leaders, okay.
Yeah.
These are military leaders in the Sahel. In the Sahel. Yes, these are the Sahelian countries. Yes, Foster. You texted the thing. I wanted you to speak to it. The Sahelian, and this is what Alliance of the Sahel. You can see Captain Ibrahim Traore. Right? Can you see him? You can see his pistol. Yes. Traore, and then these are the leaders. Mali and then Niger, they are leaders, and they have formed an association to counter the ECOWAS. And that is a troubling trend. I call it a troubling trend. So these military coup leaders from Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso have come together and formed their own alliance called the AES, Confederation of Sahel States. And you see this image here you are seeing. They attended their conference and they took that shot. And this is a troubling trend. And to be like you touch one, you touch the 3 of us. And it's a troubling trend. Okay, now go through this teaching and learning resource, and then we come back to discuss the troubling trend. I call it a troubling trend, which is rising authoritarianism in Africa, and it is a troubling trend.
Here is what is happening in Africa. Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger military leaders have signed a confederation treaty that aims to strengthen a mutual defense pact at the first summit of the Sahel States Alliance, AES, in Niamey this Saturday. Nigerian General Abdurrahmane Chiani, Burkina Faso's Captain Ibrahim Traore, and Mali's Colonel Assimi Goïta signed the treaty towards greater integration between the three countries after severing ties with an existing West African bloc.
Our deliberations will certainly enable us to adopt the legal and institutional framework that will give substance and identity to the Alliance of Sahel States Confederation. Our people have irrevocably turned their backs on ECOWAS. It is now up to us to create the Alliance of Sahel States Confederation, an alternative to any artificial regional grouping, by building a sovereign community of peoples, a community far removed from the stranglehold of foreign powers, a community of peace, solidarity, and prosperity based on our African values.
Mesdames et messieurs les conseillers à la présidence et à la
et la satisfaction qui m'anime à cet instant solennel.
If we look at the case of Niger over the past 40 years, some countries have been mining uranium to produce energy at home. From Ottawa to Paris, the streets are lit up, it's light, but in Niger, it's darkness that's being served up to us. When you go to our states, the ground is pitted on all sides in search of precious metals such as gold, and often there isn't even the slightest accessible road to reach the areas where they mine the gold, let alone certain basic social services. That's why we've decided to rise up and take the destiny of our countries into our own hands.
On 16th September 2023, by signing the Liptako-Gurma, we collectively took the courageous decision to create the Alliance of Sahel States AES. From the very first days following this historic event, the results were visible on the ground. Indeed, our alliance has very quickly been able to translate into action the collective.
So, my dear friends, what this signifies is that the three coup leaders have come together to forge their own alliance, a military pact, a military treaty, to suggest that it is also, a union. Even if ECOWAS would want to use some kind of, let's say, force, you touch one country, you touch the three, and they will come for mutual defense against the one that is being attacked. And this is to enhance their strength, their military strength, more or less can embolden them. So now let's say we have ECOWAS. These ones have also formed a parallel association. So if tomorrow also someone will go and make coup in his own country, and then ECOWAS says, hey, hand over power to civilians, else we are coming after you. What will also do? Also, what can you do? If you forge coup or if you make coup d'etat, yes, Foster, what are you going to do?
Sir, I will join the Alliance of the Sahelian States.
You'll quickly run there. You'll go and join them because that one is made up of, coup leaders, okay? So it's just like when you have, well, those who are religious, when you have Satan, you have God, right? And then you want to go, the other way. You can go for powers to the other side. That is what this is suggesting. And what can be the implication of this, thing for democracy on the continent? Foster, what will be the implication?
It will make democracy to backslide because
yes, it
some
may
of
embolden
the citizens of democratic states are trying to emulate what Traore and others are doing. So they're being motivated to also have a military regime that will topple the democratic regime.
Very well, very well. So you see, when they made this coup d'etat, ECOWAS was even deliberating on their status. ECOWAS was trying to use means, to get them to hand over power to civilians. Before ECOWAS will even, finish talking on their issue or matter, they themselves will come and say, hey, we have even resigned from you. We are not part of you. We have formed our own. And if they are not part of you, then it's even more difficult for you to make a decision or ruling on them. Okay? And that is a troubling trend or situation on the continent with regards to the democracy story. But my dear friends, today we are going to learn about authoritarian regimes. As I've mentioned, all that we've done, these are just for teasers. They are just things to warm you up into today's discussion or topic. Now, this will be my presentation outline. You should be able to define authoritarian regimes and also become aware of the defining characteristics, ladies and gentlemen. There are some misconceptions we have about authoritarian regimes. Today, we will demystify those misconceptions such that by the time we are done with our session, you will have very fantastic ideas. Every mystery will be demystified, okay? You will understand really what authoritarian regimes are and how they behave. How do they justify their regime? Sometimes they also say that is their own version of democracy. And so they have some ways that they claim their regime is, is legitimate and democratic. On what grounds? We look at the grounds they may use to justify their claims to democracy. For example, you saw the AES when they were making their speeches. Even when you listen carefully to the speeches they were making, you will understand their own claims to democracy. All right. Then we also look at how authoritarian regimes attempt to sustain their rule. You see, in politics, we usually say politics is the struggle for power, the use of power, and then the maintenance of power. So everybody comes to power and they want to maintain their power. They don't want power to be short-lived. Right? People come to power, they finish their 2 terms, and they must even be thinking about 3rd term agenda. Which means people always want to sustain power. They might want to use, other means. I mentioned Nicaragua. The president has declared that no election at all. Henceforth, there will be no election in the country. But let's see how the people react to that kind of directive or command from the president. But authoritarian regimes, how do they also sustain their rule? Do they use force all the time, or do they use their gun all the time? We will look at the various ways they use to sustain their. Then we will look at the forms of authoritarian regimes. Okay, forms. The bigger name is authoritarian regimes. But within it, there are varieties. Okay, my dear friends. Within it, there are varieties. Okay. There are varieties, and we look at the varieties or the forms. And I've asked that before in one of the supplementary exams. Identify 3 main forms of authoritarian regimes, okay? And maybe state their features and provide 2 examples each. This is a typical question in comparative politics. Identify 3 forms of authoritarian regimes, okay? Write their key features, and maybe, 2 countries each. So please pay attention. We will look at all this. Now, generally, and this is how Karamani defines authoritarian regimes. I've shared the latest version of Karamani's work on Sakai for you. Now, Karamani defines, so this is Daniel Karamani, defines authoritarian regime as those regimes that have no turnover in power of the executive. So when you have an executive that there is no turnover in the power of the executive, that is authoritarian regime. So if you have a country or a state where year in, year out, only one person has been the leader, since the very time you were born, you have not seen any other leader except one person, then that is authoritarian regime. Clearly, there might be no election, or even if there is, it is not able to lead to a turnover. Clearly, that is not democracy, and that is authoritarian regime. There is no turnover in power of the executive. And in many of these are closed systems, which data sets classifies regimes in that way. We looked at this, last 2 weeks. That you have for closed autocracy. Which of the data sets? Yes. My dear friends, with the VDEM data, you realize that we have closed autocracy, where even, elections are not even held, okay, or severely limited. And if you have such a system, there is no way there will be turnover in the power of the executive. The executive or the leader will be there, till maybe they die, and then the new leader takes over, or some other kind of arrangements. Also, can you hear me? Foster, can you hear me?
Let's see.
Okay, so also please
Yes,
check
I
your
can hear you, sir.
microphone. Also, all right. It appears also cannot hear me, but
Sir, we can hear you.
okay, very good. So if you have a regime where there is no turnover in power of the executive, it means Osuabrobo, one person has been in power over years, decades. Now let me ask you, in Ghana, since the time you were born, can you mention some of the executives, okay, or if you like, head of states that you have encountered? Mention 3 of them that you have witnessed since you were born. Mention 3. Yes, Sheriff. Mention
Sir,
1.
I'll start with Akufo-Addo.
Okay, Akufo-Addo 1. Good. Okay, Fifi. Fifi, mention 1.
Sir, sir, former President John Kufuor.
Okay, John Kufuor, good. Collins Asante. Yes.
Sir, the late President John Evans Atta Mills.
Okay, Asumdwe. Okay, Foster.
Sir, His Excellency, the former President and the current president, John Dramani Mahama.
Okay, so at least you've seen that there has been a lot of turnover in power of the executive in Ghana. So Ghana will not be deemed as what authoritarian regime, right? But can you also mention any country where you have not witnessed any turnover in power of the executive? Foster.
Sir, in Zimbabwe, until the death of Robert Mugabe, he was the president from independence.
Very well.
He passed away.
Very well. So that is a definition by Karamani. And once we hear turnover, let me take you to the theory behind this turnover thing. Have you heard of the name Samuel P. Huntington? Samuel Huntington, have you heard of him?
Yes, please.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Yes.
What was about him? We talked about him in our topic on democracy. Tell me, what did you learn about him?
Please, can you classify the waves?
Yes, the waves of democratization. Good. So you know Huntington associated with the waves of democratization. Now, one thing also associated with him is what we call the two turnover test. Hello? The two turnover test. That is Samuel Huntington. So you see, we talked about democratic development. Now, Huntington brought the two turnover test for us to know which democracies are consolidated, like what matured democracy. Okay. Now, Huntington brought his idea of two turnover test. That for us to know whether a country's democracy is consolidated or it has arrived, it has to pass through the two turnover test. Then we can say it is a mature democracy. If we are to use Huntington's two turnover test, Ghana's democracy became consolidated in the year 2000. Now, the two turnover means that we have a situation where a political party, has won, let's say, the seat of governance, okay? So, Ghana returned to the Fourth Republic, okay, 92, 93. And which party won? Which party won?
NDC.
NDC, okay? And then in 1996, which party won again?
NDC.
NDC. So
NDC.
the same party, okay? But in the year 2000, which party won?
NPP.
NPP. And did NDC hand over power to NPP?
Yes.
So
yes,
according
please.
to Huntington, once you see that, then that is what? A turnover. There's a turnover, right? If the opposition wins, and then there is a smooth handover, then that means the democracy is a mature and it's a consolidated one. So when you see most political science literature, the year 2000, we hailed Ghana's democracy. So that is with Samuel Huntington, his two turnover test, okay, on democratic consolidation. You might meet it elsewhere, but I'm just giving you idea about the two turnover test, okay? And then in 2004, well, the same MPP won. But then in 2008, which party won? Which party won in 2008?
NDC.
NDC. And did the MPP hand over?
Yes.
There was another turnover. So Ghana has gone through a lot of turnovers, okay? Ghana has gone through a lot of turnovers. That means our democracy is very consolidated, very mature. And that is why when you see this green here, it is not there for, for being there sick. It really tells you that Ghana's democracy, is a powerful one. That's why we are in the same zone with that of the US. Well, we are flawed democracy, okay? But we do well. It's a fantastic one. All right. Now that is by Karamani. Now, Kisselman et al., they also, now note their definition. A form of government in which power is highly concentrated at the top. So you see, and these are clearly the illiberal democracies. Okay. Last 2 weeks, when we were studying democracy, I told you that in democracy, there are 2 players. The key players are the states, or if you like, the executive, and who? The executive and who? So that we share power between the state, or if you like, the executive and the people, right? And in liberal states, we give more powers to the people, and the scope of the executive is limited. The power is given to the state is limited, and then more power is given to the people in the form of rights and liberties. That is what liberal states or liberal democracy. But if you have a situation where power is highly concentrated at the top, where power is highly concentrated, with the executive, such that political freedoms are limited, people's rights and liberties are limited, and those with authority, that's the executive, are not accountable to those they govern, that is authoritarian regime. And this is by Kisselman et al. Hello, are you there? Are you with me? Are you with me?
Yes,
so you can argue that illiberal democracies, okay, can also be deemed as what authoritarian regimes, okay, depending on the intensity of their authoritarian or tendencies, right? Are you with me? Hello.
Yes, please.
Very good.
Yes,
So
yeah.
these 2 definitions give you an idea. One, where there is no turnover, that one is very obvious. You can easily say, once it's a military regime, no election. Once it is this purely absolute monarchy, no election. These are kings, Arabian kings, and no elections. Okay, like Nicaragua, he has just said no elections, so there'll be no turnover. In that one is easier. But the one that is more subtle is, where they might be organizing some elections, but then clearly, if you put on your comparative lens, using Kisselman et al.'s argument, where power is so concentrated at the top, people's freedoms and rights, liberties are curtailed, and there's no accountability. That is also authoritarian regime. There, very good. All right. And that is the more reason why here I told you that when we are looking at authoritarian regimes, you put the yellow and the purple together. Okay? We cannot be fanfooled. The yellow and the purple, whether partly free or not free, and these are authoritarian regimes. They are authoritarian regimes because even if you go to those with yellow, power is highly concentrated at the top. Like when you go to Russia, China, Russia, China, power is so concentrated at the top. All right. So, my dear friends, that is that for the definition. Now, look at these images. Authoritarian regimes, they come in various forms and shapes. Now, just look at the images and tell me some varieties that they come. Look at this image. Can you see my cursor? What does it depict? These images. Yes, it depicts what? Emanuela, take me. Yes.
Prof.
These images.
Monarch.
Okay, monarch. Very good. Well, yes, these are monarchical systems. You can see these Arabian kings. Do they conduct elections?
No, please.
So once you are the king, you rule forever. So there is no turnover in power of the executive. And that's a typical example of authoritarian regime. Okay, now look at this one. What comes to mind? Yes, Collins. This one? Asante. Asante Kwapon. What comes to mind? Yes, Collins. This depicts single party state, right? This signifies the Chinese Communist Party and one party what? States, single party states. These are examples of varieties of authoritarian regime. So if you have a state where it is what? One party states, that is authoritarian regime. So like Ghana under the First Republic, the 1960 Constitution had made Ghana a one-party state. Under Nkrumah, that's a typical example of authoritarian regime. Now look at this one also. It depicts what? Yes, this one depicts what? Justice. Yes, justice.
Prof, please, I can't see your cursor.
You can see.
Okay,
Can
I
you see?
cannot see it.
It depicts what? This one, they have been,
authoritarian regime.
yes, the bigger name is authoritarian regime. These people, they have been in the news in recent times.
Yes, that's Iran.
This is Iran. Yes, that's Iran. Iran. And you can see Islamic Republic of Iran. Okay, Foster, what comes to mind?
Sir, it is a theocratic.
Yes, that's a theocracy. Okay, yes. Theocratic regime. That's a theocracy. So religious leaders rule. So you see the clergy will meet and then they will select. When the US killed Ali Khamenei, when they killed him last year, was it this year? Now, when he was killed, quickly, the clerics, they met and then they identified a new Islamic leader to be in charge of the states. Clearly, it is ruled by religious doctrines and religious leaders. And that is what theocracy. Ruled by religious leaders, religious doctrine. That is by what? And that is what we call theocracy. You know that cracy or kratos means what? Rule or power. And theo means what? Divine, divinity, or maybe God. So ruled by godly people, ruled by some divine being, or religious or leaders, where they take instruction from a deity or religious or a divine entity. That is theocracy. Now look at the ones here as well. What does this word typify? This one. What does it signify? Yes. Hello. Moses.
Military regime.
Okay, military regime. So you see, at a glance, you get to know that once you talk of authoritarian regime, it is just a bigger name. Okay, it is a universal set. But within it, we have a lot of, we have varieties. Are you there? So, but we will take our time and go through each of them. That will be next week. That will be the second part of the presentation, where we take each of the varieties one after the other, and then we do detailed assessment. For the purpose of this image is just here so that even as we are starting to build our topic on authoritarian regime, I want you to have that broader idea that if we talk of authoritarianism, we are talking about many forms, different forms of regime, but we put all of them together as authoritarian regime because it is either there is no turnover in the executive or power is highly concentrated at the top. And when you check all these regime types, yes, they fall under this. Either there is no turnover in the executive or power is so concentrated at the top and the people have no freedoms. All right. Well, so some can be one-party states, Cuba, China, Vietnam, nor this. Some regimes where you have protracted conflicts, clearly the people do not have freedoms. And then where we have entrenched autocrats, all these give you idea about authoritarian regimes, where freedoms are not given. Power is so highly concentrated. All right, now let's look at the key features, key defining features. Authoritarian rulers operate within unspoken limits, recognizing the need to strike deals. And these are some of the myths that we need to demystify. Yes, Justice.
Prof, like someone asked a question in the comment section, and question in the comments. I don't know if you can clarify that for us.
What question? I've not been there.
The person was asking that the period between 2022 to 2020 concern the turnover. So the person was on the basis that like the opposition
2012 and
did not
2020 was an
agree
exception in terms of what is this? Opposition parties refused to accept defeat. Where? What? Between 2012 and 2020? Are you talking about Ghana or what?
Yes, please, Ghana.
What happened between that period?
So in 2024, you remember the NPP did the final verdict to court because they were not happy with the results, with the electoral results and stuff. And then 2022, the same thing happened. NDC did not accept. No, it wasn't a turnover. But you see, if the result had, I don't know, they didn't accept it because they thought the electoral process was rigged or something. Hello?
Yes,
They thought the result was rigged. I want you to clarify it for me. Is this not an exception? I don't know, because the opposition wasn't okay with the result, but the electoral or the court went ahead and then declared the winning party, the one that has been said has won the election by the electoral commission as winner.
So if the opposition or whoever, disagreed with the results, but all the reports or all observers, whether local or international observers, came to terms that the election was free and fair, and even in courts they were not able to produce relevant results, or if you like, relevant exhibits, to support their claims. That cannot hold the democracy, to hostage, So I remember even when the NDC went to court, they didn't produce any evidence. They only wanted to bring the EC to the witness box just to be asking the EC questions. Clearly, that has nothing to do with authoritarianism. The electoral process and pluralism it gave same opportunities or platforms to all contending parties and candidates, and there were independent election observers, okay, from within, and then from ECOWAS and even international reporters, okay. The other time I told you last week, when we are having elections, people don't only rely on just the EC results. You have the benefit of even watching several TV stations, the neutral ones. So if you know that the green is very short and the blue is winning, you know. If you turn to channel 1, you know that the green is short or the blue is short. You go to TV3, the green is short. So if at the end of it all that they are doing will corroborate what the EC has said, and then your party says that, hey, you have rather won, but all the data points to the fact that you lost. Okay, maybe it is part of party just to whip up the sentiment of the supporters and to activate the base, but clearly it has nothing to do with authoritarianism. Okay, right, great. But there have been elections where clearly the elections were rigged. And if the opposition says they will not, as what occurs in several countries, okay, then that one we can talk about that, that as such. Yes, CODIO, and that is the Coalition of Domestic Election Observers. They were all part of, and they corroborated. So now, authoritarian rulers operate within unspoken limits. Justice, write your question down, okay? I will come to it. Now, authoritarian rulers operate within unspoken limits. My dear friends, once you hear authoritarian regimes, you see, we might think that they are so powerful that they can do everything. They can bully the people to, and that no human rights abuses, so the people fear all the time. But, my dear friends, we should understand that authoritarian rulers, they are not absolute. They are not absolutely or powerful. They operate within unspoken limits. They know that there are some limits to their power, but, well, sometimes there are no laws. Maybe even the Constitution does not limit their powers. The Constitution gives them absolute powers, but they know that there are somewhat unspoken limits. Some unspoken limits. Just like if you want to say you are the man of the house and say, well, you are the man, you can do, but there are some unspoken limits. You cannot be, doing everything or anything you want. There are some unspoken limits. Otherwise, maybe in the night you go hungry or something. You hear what I'm saying? There is nothing that limits your powers, but then there are somewhat unspoken limits. Then that is what in authoritarian regimes, they know there are somewhat unspoken limits, even though they have access to the security forces, but they know there are limits to their powers. And because of that, they recognize the need to strike deals with other power holders, such as businesses, the church, regional bosses. For example, you are powerful, you control all the military and everything. But businesses can be more powerful. If, let's say, 1 week, all the business people, they come together that, hey, for the next 1 month, we will not import sugar. We will not import soap. We won't import palm oil. We won't import all those who are manufacturing. We will not manufacture this. So that, well, the people, the citizens, they go to the shops and they are not able to get essential commodities. What do you think will happen? What will the people do if they go to the shops and they are not able to get, people don't get fuel, they don't get this, they don't get that, what will the people do? Sheriff, what will the people do?
They'll demonstrate.
They'll demonstrate. They'll be angry. Then they'll demonstrate. They will demonstrate. Yes, Foster, you wanted to add up.
There will be uprising.
There will be uprising. You see, there will be uprising. For many people, they don't care who is ruling, whether democracy or non-democracy. If they go out and they are able to get all the things they need, sometimes they don't even care. Whether it is what Gaddafi that is ruling, well, you have named him what autocratic, but for them, once they get their essential commodities, they get the accommodation, everything, they usually wouldn't care much. They will only be angry or annoyed when the system chokes them. They go to the shops and they are not getting essential commodity. They go to the filling station and then no fuel. They go to the hospital, no medication. And you see, then they vent their anger on the regime. The regime. And the church, or if you like, religious leaders, the mosque, these also control a lot of our people, followers. And they can tell them things that may make the people even rise up against the regime. Regional bosses, and all these are powerful entities. And because of this, authoritarian leaders always will want to strike alliances or partnerships with these powerful entities, the business people. So they want to be friends with the business community, the religious leaders. Okay. So if you are maybe a powerful person, then they give you a concession. Oh, Charlie, you will be part of our regime, and we will give you this contract. Maybe they've given you a big contract. You are the one sewing their military uniforms. Or you are supplying weapons. So you are part of the regime. There's no way. And that is what they do. They try to strike deals. And that is why they are usually more corrupt, because of the striking of deals. They want to buy off all potential people that can sabotage the regime. Now, just as democratic leaders need to retain electoral support, so too must authoritarian rulers. They also sometimes have to convince their allies to continue supporting the existing regime. And how do they continue to support their allies or convince them? They need to give them some, like a quid pro quo, give and take. We need to supply them with some money, some contracts, and some kind of deals. Oil fields, some concession, mining concession. We've given you maybe this Yeboah-Assiamah concession, so that you continue to support the regime. Because once these kind of goodies or handouts, once the handout ceases, then the people may also cease to support the regime. It's like they say, once your money finishes, the love also finishes. Is that not the case, Celestine? Celestina? You see, that is what happens in authoritarian regimes. If the kind of handouts you are giving to the constituents of. Now, in these regimes, the laws are vague and contradictory. In authoritarian regimes, the laws cannot be predicted. The laws are not predictable. Whatever you do, if they want to get you, they will get you. Like what Erdogan did in Turkey, right? Have you heard of Erdogan before? Erdogan passed over 500 laws that they can try anybody, they can convict you once you engage in an action deemed as that the state deems as contrary to national security or something. And so who determines that? Just like in Nkrumah's PDA, the Preventive Detention Act, if you engage in an action that the state, or if you like, the government deems as inimical to the state, you can be arrested and imprisoned without a trial. And so the question is, who determines whether what I said is inimical to the state? If I say Doomsaw is back, or if I say what the government is doing, well, the government can say it is inimical to national security, and then they can easily arrest and detain you without a third party hearing the matter, like say a neutral judge, okay, to weigh the evidence and really say that, okay, well, what Yeboah-Assiamah said is indeed inimical to the state. So, my dear friends, in authoritarian regimes, their laws are vague and they are contradictory. The laws contradict themselves. Whilst one law says you can do this, there's another law that says you cannot do. And then, if the government wants to catch you, they will catch you. If they want to arrest and prosecute you, they can have 1,001 laws to do that. So, and it creates a pretext for bringing any chosen troublemaker to court. Unless they say they want to arrest you, they can arrest you. Because if you go left, there's a law that can be applicable. You go right, there's a law applicable. Middle, there's a law applicable. And that is what occurs in authoritarian regimes. No wonder a Dogan wanted to pass over 500 laws so that whatever you say, and they can get something to prosecute you, no matter what. You cannot hide behind academic freedom. They can still come and get you because they have law on something that is akin to that. Whatever you say can be used against you. Now, there is absence of constitutional constraints and leads to callous treatment of the powerless. So, in this regime, the scope of the executive is not unlimited. The powers of the executive have not been pruned. Power is so concentrated at the top. Let's go back to Kisselman et al. A form of government in which power is highly concentrated at the top. So the executive scope is so unlimited. Political freedoms and human rights, liberties are rather limited and curtailed. Government is not accountable to the people, and so it can lead to callous treatment of the powerless. So if you are in opposition, if you are a minority, let's say, people who don't support the regime, the government can be brutal on these people. And they sometimes use military tribunal, for some sensitive cases. Military tribunal for some cases. That is why many people, once they hear that the government has passed the Tribunal Act, because it may resonate some kind of past experiences where we had military tribunals. And so, well, they say these ones are civilian tribunals. But authoritarian regimes usually use special courts, such as military tribunals, which they use for some sensitive cases. And so, well, this one is civilian tribunal, but it echoes some kind of experiences that people have experienced in the past. Well, now in these regimes, civil rights are poorly respected. We have mentioned that. Rulers seek to maintain their control and increase wealth by limiting mass participation. So, my dear friends, in authoritarian regimes, the leaders want to control the people and maybe to steal the money small. They want to control the people politically and maybe to amass some wealth. And how do they achieve that? They do that by limiting mass participation. Now, note this point very well. Authoritarian leaders want to limit mass participation. Now, when you take the broom The broom is made up of what? Different what? Broomsticks. When they are individual sticks, are they strong or weak? When they are individual sticks, are they strong or weak?
Very weak.
Very, very weak. And then you can break it. Now, once you stick them together as a system, can you easily break it?
No, please.
Very good. So
Yes,
if the citizens within the states, if the citizens are together, okay, if they are mobilized together, they form a formidable force, very formidable force, and then they can rise against the regime. They can demonstrate and protest against the regime, even to engage in revolution, because they are speaking the same voice. But what authoritarian leaders will do is that they will limit mass participation. They don't want the people to even come together. They seek to demobilize people because they know that once you come together, hey, you can challenge them, you can ask questions, you can ask for accountability. And so they do what we call divide and rule. Oh, you people, you are cans. These guys, they don't like you. You are a voter. These ones, they don't like you. Or Muslims, Christians. And this is typical of authoritarian regimes. They use ways to demobilize the people so that the people themselves, they are not together, right? And it will be difficult to engage in collective action if the people are not mobilized together. So authoritarian leaders, because they want to maintain their control, they want to engage in divide and rule. Once the people are divided, the IV, then you have a chieftaincy conflict. I mean, within one area, they can create this. Abudu and Dani, they may want to even stoke fire in some. This one, this one, Now, in typical authoritarian regimes, the leaders who want to stoke fire in some of these identity, issues or conflicts, so that the people are not even together. And once that happens, then the government finds its way. That, well, the people themselves, they are not together to even ask for accountability. So they don't want to mobilize the population. Note this point very well. When we go to totalitarianism, it will come up again. Because totalitarian regimes, they want to mobilize the people, whilst authoritarian regimes, they want to demobilize the people. Are you with me? Hello? All right. Now, the latest report, the latest democracy index gives a fair idea about authoritarian regimes in the world. We live in a world of authoritarianism, okay? When you see only 21%, this is the 2026 report. Freedom in the world. Only 21% of global population or states live in some, free states or democracy. 39, that is about 79, living in some form of authoritarianism. Clearly saying that we live in a world of authoritarianism, my dear friends. And so it's crucial as scholars of comparative politics, we learn about what authoritarian regimes, in what forms and shapes do they operate, what are the key features, how do they maintain their rule. Very important. Take Africa, for example, only 20% live in some form of democracy or free states. Okay, and this gives some perspectives of authoritarian tendencies as captured in the 2024 report of the Freedom House report. Coup and power grabs, rigged elections, look at the states, okay? You can see Nicaragua here, right? Can you see Nicaragua? Rigged elections. Can you see Nicaragua? Hello?
Yes, please.
So in this year, he said that no elections at all. Enough of the rigging. I'm not even going to rig again. No elections at all. Nicaragua. So and that's a tendency they take. That's a tendency. You see backsliding and then to a point that, well, purely rigged elections. So in 2024, that was a trend. Now 2026, he said no elections at all. You can see coup and power grabs and trench authoritarianism. Look at the various states. Authoritarianism. They occur in several forms and shapes. These are the worst of the West. Worst of the West. You can see these states. All right. We talked about autocratization when we were looking at the VDEM data set or VDEM report. Now, autocratization, this is the process of states becoming increasingly autocratic. So, for example, you see Nicaragua, it was already what? Autocratic regime, authoritarian regime. And then it has what? Worsened the situation to even argue that no elections at all. So if its score were to be 4, now it has what? Reduced to maybe 3.2 or even 2 or 1. And that kind of further retrogression is what we call autocratization. The process of states becoming increasingly autocratic is called autocratization. Like last week, someone said that you are not smelling good. You are smelling what? Bad, and then you are fatting. In addition, in Tree, how do we say it? Also, Samuel, in Tree, how do they say it? Also,
Please, only I can't say it too.
you can say it. Bismarck knows it. Yes.
Yeah, Bismarck knows it first.
How do we say it in Tree?
I don't know how to speak Chi. I can say it in Ewedu.
Okay, say it in Ewe. Yes, I like the Ewe version. And then Sharif will bring yes.
So it means
Again. Okay, Sharif, speak.
Yeah,
We want your local language. Sharif, your local language. Say it in your local language. Okay, good. Who is it in Ghana? We want the Ghana version. The Ghana version.
That's Ghana.
That is Ghana. Okay, yes. Good. We want Hausa version. Hausa. Now they say we are going to learn Chinese and then Arabic. So we want Arabic version, Arabic, and then we go to Chinese. Arabic before Chinese. Which language is that? Which language is that? Yes, faster.
I want to say it in Chinese.
Say it in Chinese.
Xie lai xin xian.
Oh, be like.
Settings, Caleb. Settings, man. Now, as many regimes around the world are seeing their democratic institutions erode as a result of slow process and not due to sudden seizure. Of course, I will not belabor this point. We've learned about democratic backsliding. And so, I mean, what this slide is talking about, okay, is telling us that in some states, you see that the democratic institutions erode gradually, slow process. Like what we learned last week. they occur, slowly and not due to sudden seizure of power, such as a coup, right? We use this term, autocratization, right? Maybe some kind of increasingly or gradual, or better still democratic or backsliding. There are two notable forms of autocratization. Executive aggrandizement. Have you heard of it before? Have you heard of this word before? Okay, yes. Which is the increasing power of the executive vis-a-vis other branches of government. Then electoral manipulation. Have you heard of it before? So, my dear friends, it's because of this particular slide, which previously we were learning about this. Because of this, that was why I came up with the topic on democratic backsliding. And for your batch, you are fortunate, and of course, last year too, you were fortunate. We usually treat democratic backsliding before we come to this. So I will not spend much time on this particular slide because you've had a whole lecture on this one. Now, these are the varieties. We've talked about this already. Let's look at studies on authoritarian regime. Studies on authoritarian regime. Now, you see, as scholars of comparative politics, there are two main kinds of studies on authoritarian regimes or autocracy. Sisi Obiri, please, you are making some green marks on my slide. Delete them. Okay, thank you. And please don't do that again. Hey. All right. Now, contemporary typologies of authoritarian regimes offer framework. When we see the trend of the nature of authoritarian regimes, scholars like Kisselman, et al., and Karamani, they argue that, well, we can broadly group studies or research on authoritarian regime into two, whether continuous studies or categorical studies. Whether continuous or categorical studies. Now you check these ones. If I put the cursor, tell me the kind of regime. What kind of regime is this? What kind of regime is this?
Monarchical.
Monarchical. And these ones?
You have single party.
Single party. This one, what can you say about that?
Traoré and his boy.
And so what kind of regime is that?
Military.
Military regime. Okay, military. And this one?
Theological.
Theocracy. Right? We are political scientists, so we add a cracy. Cracy means a rule or power. So theocracy. Instead of saying theological, take only of the theo and then add the cracy. So it's what? Theocracy. Now, based on the features or even the way they are dressed and how they appear, you can categorically mention the typology. That's why I asked you to mention. So once you see the features and how they behave, you can what? You can categorically mention that this is what? Monarchy. This one is a theocracy. That one is a military regime. And that is what we call the categorical approach, the categorical study. So the categorical study, you can clearly, identify them based on their features. Are you with me? Hello? So the categorical features, we will look at the varieties and the various varieties next week. But we also have the continuous typology or studies. The continuous can illustrate the degree of authoritarianism. Now, last week when we were studying the democracy index, are you with me? Hello? Do you remember the democracy index? Hello, are you there?
Yes, please, we are there.
The democracy index, what range do we classify as authoritarian or regime? What range? From which score to what score?
0 to 3.99.
0 to 3.99. Now, very good. So if a state gets 0, what does it mean?
It means they practice authority.
Very, very authoritarian, right? Now, what if a state gets what? If a state gets 3.9, and then another gets 3.2, another gets 2, another gets 1. Which of them is more authoritarian?
1.
The one that gets what? 1, right? And which one is least authoritarian?
3.9.
So it means that even for the authoritarian regimes, you see that levels there inside, isn't it? There are levels. Now, even if a state will get what, 4, or even 4.5, even 5, or even 5.5, it is still what authoritarian, just that, well, it is hybrid. It has improved to what we call hybrid regime. Okay, are you with me? It still has the authoritarian tendency, just that it has improved a bit. So it is hybrid. That is what we call the continuous typology. So with the continuous, we check the degree. Hey, this year, did they improve on their human rights? Well, did they improve on the function of government? Did they allow people to participate when the people were demonstrating? Did they beat them up? Did they call the military to beat them, or they allowed? So comparativists will be observing this yearly, and that is what VDEM does. That is what the EIU Democracy Index does, and that is what the Freedom in the World report. So they follow up year out. They are measuring so that we see the continuous whether countries are improving or retrogressing. That is the continuous typology, and we assign score. Now, with the continuous typology, it illustrates the degree of authoritarianism. And so if I give you 4 different states with their levels of democracy index, you can tell me their degree of authoritarianism. Even though they are all authoritarian regimes, you can tell me the degree of their authoritarianism. So let's even come here. These are different forms, okay? In terms of their nomenclature, you have mentioned that these are monarchical systems. Even the monarchical systems, the kind of monarchical system in Jordan might be different from Saudi Arabia, will be different from Kuwait, okay, UAE, depending on the kind of freedoms that each of the regimes allows, depending on whether or not they allow the people to participate, depending on the function of government. So even though they are all monarchical system, but we can still check the degree of authoritarianism. Okay. Now, even we can have military regimes. You can have one-party regimes, but their degree of authoritarianism might not be the same. Foster, are you there? Now tell me, as a comparativist, how can we tell the degree of authoritarianism? So let's use Burkina Faso and then China. As a comparativist, if I ask you to tell me or to tell me the degree of their authoritarianism, how can you say this? Or how can you address this question dispassionately? Easier way to go about it. How can you do that? Yes. If I give you 5 countries, I want you to tell me the degree of their authoritarianism. How do you go about it as a comparativist? Yes. Yes, Samuel.
So this Foster.
Yes, Foster.
So the degree of the authoritarianism can be determined by assessing how much political competition exists and how well rights and freedoms are protected, as well as how consecrated and unchecked those powers are.
Fantastic. So irrespective of the type of regime, Foster is going to use what? Variables to check, okay, the degree of their authoritarianism. And that is the continuous typology. Then I come back again. As a comparativist, what is your tool? What tool will you use to ascertain those variables? Foster, what tool are you going to use to ascertain those variables? How do you tell? Yes, I want someone to tell me. It's easier. As a comparativist, how do you know? Yes.
So either I take the report from the democracy index.
Yes, you can take the democracy index. Once you get the democracy index, you get to know, okay, the score of each of these countries. So then you know the degree of authoritarianism, irrespective of whether it's a military regime or hybrid regime or one party. You will know the degree. The degree will tell you the brutality, whether they allow people freedom, human rights, or that will tell you. Okay. All right. So that is the continuous typology. You can use the democracy index, okay, or the VDOM score. Okay, the VDOM. Then you see the VDOM. How do they classify states? They use the regimes of the world, isn't it? Right? Hello.
Yes, Doug.
So the continuous illustrate the degree, whilst the categorical can be used to differentiate between authoritarian or regime. Though authoritarian regimes all generally share some basic features in common, please note, comparativists, note that authoritarian regimes are not one and they are not the same. There are structural differences between them, and the structural differences are vast. As I mentioned, authoritarian regimes, they are not the same. They are not one. There are structural differences, and the differences are vast. Even when you check here, clearly you will know that they are not the same. They are not one. They are vast for differences. In some regimes, they organize elections. In some, they don't organize. In some, vast differences. And that is what we are going to do with the categorical typology, okay? All right. Now, when you check the VDEM, how do we call this thing? This one I've asked like 4 times. So in exam, I'll be a free person to bring it, and then I'll ask you to explain what this means. How do we call this thing? Yes, what is that? Yes, comparativist. What is that thing? This one.
Is it indicators?
No. Yes. Maybe I'm giving you one apart for your exam. This is associated with the VDEM, varieties of democracy, but specifically how do they call this? Yes. Yes, Michelle, I'll mute.
Regimes of the world.
Yes, Michelle. Regimes of the world. Regimes of the world. Now, when you check the regimes of the world, you can even know the continuous typology. It gives you an idea. Now, when you check closed autocracy, let's say all states that fall under closed autocracy and states that fall under electoral autocracy, Which of them do you think will be more autocratic in nature? Which of them? Yes, which of them will be more autocratic in nature?
Closed.
Closed autocracy. Okay. So this gives you an idea. It gives you the nature of the regime, whether, in terms of its openness to liberty, people's freedoms, rights, participation, and the likes. So even though they are all autocracy, but then, I mean, some do better than the others to the extent that they can further improve to get to the gray zone, and then they may further improve to get to electoral or to democracy, and what have you. And that is a continuous typology. So we continuously monitor them to check how they are performing on the variables. That is the continuous typology. So here, now, like if I give this, which of these states is more authoritarian? My dear friends, look at over 20 states. Which of them is more authoritarian? Yes. Any hand? Which of them is more authoritarian? Yes. Look at these states and tell me, we are using a continuous typology. Which of them is the most authoritarian here and why?
Russia.
Yes, Wahine. Wahine, which of them is the most authoritarian?
Russia.
Why Russia?
Because it's called negative 22.
Where is it?
On the line here.
Are you sure?
The third line.
Are you seeing my screen?
So please, it's Afghanistan.
Oh, are you seeing a different screen? Afghanistan. Why do you say Afghanistan?
So
Why
please,
do you say Afghanistan?
Because their democratic index is 0.32.
Yes, it had a least score. So in terms of all the variables you were looking for, I mean, electoral process, they got 0. Maybe civil liberty, 0. Participation, functional gap, 0, 0, 0. So you see clearly the system is so closed. Whilst others like China, well, China got 1.94. In terms of, hey, we can get to a -8 electoral process. But they did well in terms of other variables. But overall score 1.94. So that is how we examine the continuous typology. Okay, we use the democracy index to tell which ones do better. Look at Cuba, Vietnam. Now, even though all these are authoritarian regimes, okay, I now see where you were confused. No, this is the overall score. Okay, this is overall democracy index score. So use this one rather than these are the individual variables. Okay, the 5 variables, but that's the overall score, and then their position globally. So you see, Afghanistan was the number 169. That's the last, with a score of 0.32. Very well. Now, these are longest serving dictators. So if you were born in Cameroon, even if you were born in 1975, you have not seen any leader except Paul Biya. Who was born in 1975? Who was born in 75? I don't think any of you. Not even the chief comparativist. No, Foster is not Tonintus. So if you were born in Cameroon, you would have encountered only Paul Biya. Equatorial Guinea, even 79, Obiang. Yeah, no, there was a coup d'etat recently against Obiang regime. Iran, well, recently, he was ousted through killing. The new leader has been elected or has been selected by the clergy. He will rule till the next generations will come. Republic of Congo, Cambodia, if you were born in Uganda. And you see, these are longest serving dictators. And that is why Karamani mentioned that authoritarian regimes are those regimes where there's no turnover in the power of the executive. They'll be ruling year in, year out. No turnover in the power of the executive. But at least you born in Ghana, you've encountered a lot of changeover or changes in the power of the executive or the makeup of the executive. Why are we interested as comparativists? Why are we interested in studying authoritarian regimes? After all, they are not democracies. Why do we have to worry ourselves? Yes, we are interested because these regimes, they have international significance. Whether you judge by the scale, look at China. When we were looking at states, comparing states or classifying states based on their population, what can you say about China? What can you say about China when we were classifying states based on population? Very popular states controlling over 1.4 billion, okay? Very powerful. And so we should be interested in what is happening there. They are growing international significance. And so it makes whatever happens within these countries crucial to the world. You cannot just be focusing on what you are doing only, but then you should be interested because some of these states are incubators of terrorists, like Saudi Arabia. When Osama bin Laden and the likes, sometimes they even provide, support. They fund some of these terrorist groups. So you cannot say you are in your house because you have paved your compound, all right? So, I mean, whether you're nearby surrounding, there's a bush there. If there's a huge bush, you don't care because you have paved your environment. So you don't care whatever is happening there, whether there are serpents, there are lions, whatever, you don't care. What will be the impact on you? Yes. What will be the impact if you seem not to care about what is happening in your surrounding? You are only focusing on your own or compound. These terrorists, they can become what? In fact, they can become global threats, like what happened in the US, 9/11. 9/11 attack. Yes, Sami says you become a victim if you don't care about what is happening. Okay, and perhaps that was why the US said, well, they will not sit down for Iran. For Iran to have control of nuclear weapons. Okay, so actual or internal possession of nuclear weapons. Now, if these clear authoritarian states have access to nuclear weapons, it can be very detrimental. Okay, yeah. So because of these things, that is why comparativists, we spend much time to also learn about these states, especially the continuous typology, whether they are improving or they are retrogressing. Okay, whatever is happening year in, year out. My dear friends, we will end here, but let's demystify some misconceptions you might have, so that by the time we end today's lesson, you go home with no misconceptions about authoritarian regimes. One, we should not assume that all states place total or unlimited power in a despot, seeking to control the whole population through fear and surveillance. So once you hear authoritarianism, do not assume that all states that are authoritarian in nature, they seek to place total control or all authoritarian regimes, they place unlimited power in the hands of the leader, who is what? A despotic or leader that wants to control the entire population using of fear and surveillance. No, it's not like that. There are some regimes which are authoritarian, but then you will not see that the leader has unlimited power and that he's using fear and surveillance. No, some of them, they use what? Handouts, like I mentioned. They try to use some kind of contracts. They use corruption money to get the people to be voting them year in, year out. So they can be there without using fear and surveillance, using the military to brutalize the people, but then they are using some other means to cajole the people to perpetuate themselves in power. Of course, it is true that most of them might use what? Fear and surveillance. The despot will place unlimited power in the executive to put fear in the people to at all times rule or control them. But there are some that do not engage that. So let's demystify that misconception. Of course, it will be easier. All those that are close autocracies, that could be true for that. But there are many which are what? Electoral autocracy. Okay, they will hold multi-party election, but then they might use some means, okay, to sabotage the will of the people and what have you. So it is not true to say that they all would want to place unlimited power in the executive. Now, one key to understand this regime is to recognize that few are absolute tyrannies. Only few are absolute tyrannies. Only few are closed autocracies. A lot of them, modern day, modern day authoritarian regimes, they are mostly hybrid in nature. We sometimes call them competitive authoritarian regimes. They will conduct some elections. They have some institutions of democracy. Yet, they are wolves in sheep clothing, my dear friends. Many leaders are in a weaker political position than their equivalents in liberal democracy. Okay, yes. The art here is to identify these limitations and how such rulers seek to sustain their position. It is instructive to take a view on the effectiveness of authoritarian regimes, my dear friends. Now, we have mentioned that democracies are associated with high national income or wealth creation. So when we were looking at classifying states based on national income, and when we were studying what democracy, I told you that there's a connection, there's a nexus between democracy and then wealth creation or the wealth of states. Mostly the democratic states are also the high income states. And I showed you based on the map, those areas denoting green for the high income states and then for the full democracies and right. But we should also note that there are few authoritarian states that also do better in terms of effectiveness, okay? There are few that are effective in terms of their governance. Authoritarian regimes can generate the capital for economic takeoff precisely because it can resist popular pressure for consumption. For example, if you are an authoritarian regime like China, and you want to sustain maybe infrastructure development, and so you've earmarked some monies for development, then labor is agitating for salary increment. Otherwise, they want to go on strike or they are demonstrating. If you are a country like Ghana, okay, where the leader wants to maintain power, let's say it's election time, few months to election, and then some labor unions are threatening strike. because they want some conditions of service to be met. And then they want to use that to cajole you because you want to win power, and then elections are a few months ahead. Justice, what is the government going to do? Even though you had earmarked some money for some infrastructure development, but the people are on strike and they are threatening you. It's like they want to blackmail you. What are you going to do? The government may do what? Yes, Justice.
You call them to the table for negotiation.
Sorry? Hello?
Yeah, hello, Prof.
Okay, so someone says the government will rather satisfy the needs of the workers who are threatening what? Strike. Yeah, because, because of votes, the people can easily blackmail you, and then even money, sometimes governments may even go and borrow to come and pay some of these things. But in a typical authoritarian regime, you cannot blackmail the government because of votes. Okay, so monies for or earmark for economic takeoff. Okay, the government can be disciplined to engage in long-term planning. It will not be like 4 years of this, 4 years of that. You start this and then the houses are in the bush. The e-classrooms are in the bush. They are not completed. Agenda 111, they are not completed. They are in the bushes. The new government comes, will start breaking, some schools, people's houses, ostensibly to start creating a 24-hour market. Most of the markets will not finish, will not be completed, and let's say a new regime comes. Then they start something else. Saglemi was in the bushes, okay, for a long time, over 8 years. Nothing happened. Now, if it were a typical authoritarian regime, there will be a continuity. They will make sure they finish, give it to people. People are paying rent. The rent that they are paying can go and offset the loan they took for the Saglemi housing. But the houses are rotting in the bush, yet the state is paying for the loans that it took. So clearly, we will always be going back to square one. Okay, you quickly finish with the houses, give it for people to rent, and then use the rent money plus other, to go and quickly pay the loan so that you don't pay more interest. But because of 4 years of this, 4 years of that, then we are not seeing enough progress. But authoritarian regimes, they can generate the capital for economic takeoff, and they can be disciplined in some kind of, so those that want to be disciplined, they can, because it can resist popular pressure for consumption. If they don't want to spend the money on salary, you cannot, blackmail them. China is a typical example. But my dear friends, it is only a few of these, such as China, and we call them deviant cases, okay? Otherwise, most of them are not effective when it comes to governance. Only few, especially China, and there are some few in the Arabian Gulf states where they use the oil money, to develop the states and then the people. Okay, and of course, Libya, Gaddafi was doing similar thing like that in terms of ensuring the socio-economic or livelihood of the people. A few. Otherwise, majority are very brutal and they are also very poor. Like Somalia. Okay, Dr. Congo, very poor. So we shouldn't assume that if you're authoritarian regime, it means you can use the resources for economic takeoff. No, my dear friends, majority of them, it is negative, especially Dr. Congo and many of them. only a few, okay, are able to use that kind of long-term gesture and the ability to control the people for something better. But majority, are unable to utilize the power very well. Okay, I'll pause here. Justice, you had a question. Yes, ask your question. And then any other person. Okay, Foster, you've raised your hand. Yes.
Yes, sir. Sir,
Yes.
this first.
Yes.
So I want to sincerely thank you for listening to my plea and making the end of semester exam online on site. And also, I have a problem because there is a general problem with the plagiarism checker. Because all of us are listening to the same audio on YouTube and writing on it. So those who are able to write early, their plagiarism is low.
You mean exams or what?
And those of us who do it early, later on, we get our plagiarism going higher. So I want to bring it to your attention.
Okay, very well noted. Is it also possible that those who finish early, they give it to others to copy same? So
that cannot necessarily be the case.
That can be that also.
Hello.
People finish and then they are circulating it to others. You see, that one is to cause trouble for you. Yes, Samuel.
Yes, sir. Please can you hear me?
Yes.
If that's the case, if people were copying from others, the plagiarism rate to be hundreds.
No, I'm not getting you. No, but let's ask questions on the topic. Are we okay?
Yes, sir, we are okay.
Okay, very well. Any question? Yeah, Justice.
Okay, Prof. My question was concerned with the turnover.
Yes.
So, according to the explanation they gave to Samuel, it means that the turnover occurs when there's, let's say, change of government in a different political party, but not within the same political party. I don't know if I'm getting it correct.
Sorry.
Hello.
Yes.
I want to classify something. That's what I'm asking. Like the
yes.
turnover is change of government to different political party, but not within the same political party.
Yes.
Is that what it means?
Yes, that's what it means. Okay.
Oh.
Yes, there should be a changeover. There should be a turnover, not within the same political party. That's why Huntington brings the two turnover tests, and I use the NPP NDC example for you to note. Okay.
Okay.
Yes, Obed.
Sir, please, actually wants to know your office hours. I wanted to see with a personal glitch on my
Okay,
side.
so Wednesday, from 10 o'clock, I'll be in the office. Okay, my office hours, Wednesdays. All right.
Because I submitted the assignment, it came back as though I didn't
Very
submit
well.
it.
Wednesday. Wednesday is fine. Okay.
Sure.
Okay. Wednesday. Yeah. Any other? Okay. In the absence of any further comments, my dear friends, thank you for your time. The class is ended, and then enjoy the rest of your day. Okay. All right. Bye bye. See you next week.